Hello, everyone. It is so good to be back here on this Monday, Educational Monday, and I have a lot in store for you today. I am going to cover a very important topic, which is overcoming anxiety. And a lot of us actually have a situation of anxiety, whether it's because of a test or because of something that's going on and happening. So I want to spend the next few minutes expanding on that. So first of all, let me connect my PowerPoint for today. Okay. So conquering test anxiety, and I'm going to give you some tips, hopefully will be useful tips for you to deal with anxiety in everyday life. So first, let's talk about what I'm here to do today. My goal is to provide practical tips. I am not a medical doctor. I am not providing you tips that I know work. I am just offering an holistic approach to overcome anxiety. Anxiety as a whole is something very common. A lot of people experience it in many different aspects of life. Some levels of anxiety are actually good. We all have that. When you have a wedding the next day, of your child or yourself, of course you're going to be anxious, you're going to be excited. There are a lot of different feelings that are happening. Or even as a focus of today, when you know you have a test, very important test, SAT for teenagers, and a college admission test, or a final exam, or any other exam that you know that is crucial for you to do well, because it would affect your one way or another of your well-being and your future life. So I want to provide you the of what test anxiety you would experience that. So the problem, if you don't deal with the anxiety, you have certain things that lead you to long-term consequences that you might don't deal with your anxiety to decrease test score and academic. You want to do something, and overcoming your abilities is skills. Another thing I can touch a little bit on how we can improve. It would impact, and when we are in a situation of stress, we make different have made on their normal self-confidence and self-esteem. When capable of doing something, you and how you feel about yourself well is what you feel during the time. Feeling of fear could be fear of not doing well enough, fear of not being, feel nervous, and have those mixed performance during the test. Few common symptoms for test everything in your life. First, physically, you would feel that it's significantly increasing sweat in their hands. And it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means you might experience stomach ache, anything that makes you feel very. How about cognitive? Is of all that I have encountered, concentration issue. Some of us are just about whatever we're doing. Memory, remember experiencing that you just in a moment of, I don't know it. I remember part of your cognitive symptom of self-talk, telling yourself you're not good enough, not you're with. And what I call thinking, where you basically go through this one moment or another, expecting the worst, even though you love. Others can panic. You can be very, in movies they show that when somebody's nervous in the room, that's the restlessness. Feeling overwhelmed, low of failure. Behavior is one of the biggest behavior later, because you are so much to cover and you're afraid. Visit my YouTube channel last week, actually, but depending for something that's labeled for past, that might help you to enhance your ability to finish a task. You might be able to, or you have a problem. Another thing that I'm going over that I've done last week. I want you to do a couple of things for yourself to identify what are those, and just take a moment right now, take a piece of paper, self, last time you had a test, remember that you had a hard time with, and go for the test. What are some thoughts in your mind? Did you the best way to address an issue is first, if you don't know how you feel on that situation. Something that's called common triggers. Common triggers are triggers of one point of a life or another. You feel pressure time to do a certain student is doing so much better. I'm sure, am I even bothering? Something like that. Trigger is just lack of preparation. And that definitely triggers and afraid of letting your parents know if you don't do that specific test. Your teenager or you yourself a score to get accepted, overwhelmed and intimidated by a specific task. Why would I even do it? Breathing, another thing that I think is very important, exercise is all about. I am going to teach you in a minute. To reduce the cortisol production released in your body at the time of many different techniques today. I'll focus on help you reduce anxiety. Calm down the parasympathetic, our response of a flight. The parasympathetic nervous system is the will help you calm down, lower heart rate. And as you recall, so by deeps your heart rate, which of anxiety. So learning how to control your anxiety. Stress, you probably don't breathe as much. Straighten the breathing, concentration, improve your lot of muscle tension that comes along with anxiety. Not so much of a pain of tense. Your muscle feel enhancing emotional regulation. Regulate your emotional, slowing down your breathing and your interrupts with your negative thought head. And I will show you in a few minutes how you basically stop yourself. Focus and concentration. It is the best of all is that it's a test and you're sitting in your car. Take a test. You can exercise, deep breath, feel that your lungs are filled. Make sure you feel that your stomach rises. This is why we have the hand on the stomach and the hand of the chest. You feel the rising as you inhale. Then you're going to hold 7 seconds. So you count in your head for 7 seconds, but you hold your breath. During that time, think about how you feel. Okay? Don't think about what you feel, but how you feel at that moment. And then very slow exhaling, counting to 8. Slowly and completely empty your lungs fully. So let's try to do it again together. You count to 4, you inhale. Hold your breath for 7. And exhale for 8. At the end of 8, you should feel that you have no more air, but keep pushing it out. And as you push it out, let go of any tension, any stress. Imagine that anxiety comes out with every breath you take. And you're going to repeat it a few times, usually 4 to 5 times, and you're going to feel so much better afterwards. But definitely do it repetitively. If you don't feel better, continue doing it. Within a few times, you're going to feel so much more relaxed. Doesn't take a long time, but it does definitely get the results. And then at the end, when you're ready, only when you're ready, open your eyes gently, do whatever you need to do afterwards, and do this exercise as often as you need. You can do it several times a day. You can do it every hour. You can do it as you want, whenever you want. So this is just a summary of how that's done. There's another technique that's called, I believe, 7-7. 8, don't quote me on that. I can't remember the name. This is my personal favorite, but all of those techniques mean the same thing. It's just how many counts you inhale, how long you hold, and how long you exhale out. So whichever one you do, you're going to follow that pattern several times until you feel better. There's another technique that's called the belly breathing. You can read that. I'm just adding this down for you. You kind of do the same thing without actually counting the time, but you're basically filling up your stomach as if it's a balloon that you're filling up with air and then deflating it and filling it up and deflating it. So try that as well if that works. 4-7-8 works like a charm every time for me. Feel free to Google other techniques if you are not happy with that one, but if you try it long enough, you'll see that it gives you the greatest benefit of relaxing your anxiety. Another one is time management. And time management have always been a factor for each and every one of us. It's very important that you manage your time, because if you don't manage your time and you didn't have enough time to study, that's when you start being anxious. Time management is developed to maximize your productivity. You want to make sure that you are effectively studying, and we'll talk about the studying techniques, but the effectiveness of studying is really what reduces your anxiety, because if you know that you have crammed last minute, you took all the material you had to study and you just spend the night studying it, you're putting yourself up for stress. You're putting yourself up there for feeling a little bit more anxious. It helps reducing procrastination. If you manage your time, it would help you reduce the procrastination and pull things to do later. So again, view my other YouTube video with reducing procrastination. I have a very productive technique that helped other students. I heard some feedback of people that actually started implementing it. So hopefully that would work for you as well. And then balance your study routine. I will spend time in a few weeks teaching you what study routine might be like, but it's very important that you manage and you maintain a specific routine of studying. If you know that it's best for you to study a specific amount of time, do that. If you know that you are better studying, you have a better studying way in the morning versus night or vice versa, then adjust your time accordingly. It's very important that you plan yourself ahead, so then you don't set yourself to that anxiety when time comes and you have to present or do the test or take the exam or do whatever that you are working for. Set yourself with realistic goals. A lot of students want to achieve things fast. So let's say you have a test next week on 3 chapters, and realistically, you know you can't study 3 chapters in a day. You know that even if you cram it all, you're not going to remember it all. So set yourself a realistic goal. Tell yourself, okay, so I have a week. Let's do 1 chapter every 2 days. Realistically, that would be much better to plan, as opposed to saying, that's fine, I know this topic, I'll just do it last day, because you know it's going to maximize your stress level. Minimizing your stress level is another way to time manage. And effectively time managing definitely help you successfully prepare for an exam. So a well-structured study plan helps you reduce the stress. Going back to what I said with setting realistic goals, study plan is also part of realistic goal. Break the time into efficiency. So when you study, you have enough time to study and practice and all that. And then enhancing understanding. There are a lot of ways of how you can enhance your understanding in a specific topic and how you help yourself study. So we'll spend time on time management in a few weeks. Another technique is study techniques. It's really not about how long you spend for study. It's what you did and how you study. I can study for 3 hours for a test, but remember nothing, because all I did is reading. Reading the topic or the material is probably not enough to do the studying. Next week, I'm actually spending time on our Educational Monday Day on the effective study technique. That's the lesson I want to do next week. But today, I just want to give you a couple of suggestions. First, active recall. There's a difference between active recall and passive recall. A passive recall is just reviewing notes. You're just reading, rereading things that you already wrote. That may work for some, but maybe not for all. So to active recall, the best way for me, what worked for me, and again, I'm giving you tips of things that worked for me and most students, it doesn't mean that it would 100% work on you, but you should definitely try it, is, let's say, doing it out loud. So you're reviewing the same notes, but you're reading it out loud, or you suppose somebody's standing right next to you and you're reteaching that material, or if you have a family member that can quiz you, or if you just make yourself flashcards with quiz questions, that's active studying. Active studying or active recall is when you take the material and you take out of the material the important things that you want to remember, and not just rereading the notes and going over things you already wrote, because that's pretty much obvious. Spaced repetition, repeating things over and over for a long term. There's a big difference between short-term memory and long-term memory. I'll focus on that next week. But when you're doing repetition and when you're repeating something at a specific time, hopefully daily or depending on what it is that you're studying, you're enhancing your long-term memory, and long-term memory will help you for a lot more time. Note-taking strategies, that's another way of important strategy technique. The very first workshop I've done is called Effective Note-Taking Techniques for Better Studying. Go ahead on my YouTube channel and find it. The best method that I like is the Cornell method, but I have outlined the outlining and the mind mapping techniques. Note-taking is as important as the studying itself, because if you take effective notes and good notes, then your studying becomes so much easier. Be clear and set yourself clear goals. That would be your fourth strategy. What do I mean by clear goals? You want to be very specific about what it is that your goal is. If your goal is to get 1200 on the SAT, then that is a clear goal. You know where you're going for. But if your goal is to get 1500 on the SAT, that's another clear goal that would require a different aspect of learning. So setting goals is very important. You got to stay focused and motivated on your goal, what you need to do and why you need to get a specific score or another. Differentiate between a short-term and a long-term goal. A short-term goal is something that would work today, tomorrow, next week, something very, very short and productive right now. A long-term goal is a little bit more long, just like you hear, a long-term, it's a little bit more intensive. And something like an end of semester or a full semester goal, or end of year goal, or the next 3 months goal, that's a long-term goal. You want to set it up, and if you're studying for a test and you know that your test is in the next 2 weeks, you're going to need to focus on a short-term goal. But if you know you have to take a DAT exam, which is in 3 months from now, that's a long-term goal. Set yourself for a long-term goal and tell yourself what is it that you're going to do over that time frame to get yourself to succeed on the test, how you set up your time, what are the weekly objectives that you're doing, how do you study, and what all of that would go along with the long-term goal. Realistic goal, make sure your goal is realistic. If you know that you have to study for the DAT in 3 months, you know it's doable, it's very realistic. But if your DAT is in 2 weeks and you still have biology and chemistry and English to practice, this is just setting yourself right away to feel not good. And you want to set yourself into realistic goals, so this way you set yourself to succeed. There's a lot of power in visualization, whether you believe it or not. A lot of times you should picture yourself. What outcome do you want to achieve? And that just gives you, just that itself boosts your motivation. If you know that you have got 1450 on your SAT and that was pretty much your goal, visualize yourself getting that. Don't visualize yourself when you get the test and you tell yourself, that wasn't what I wanted. Visualize yourself with that score, with what you actually wanted to achieve. That reduces the anxiety, because now you're putting yourself into a goal that's so much more tangible. You feel it, you visualize it. It makes you feel more accomplished. The next strategy is positive versus negative self-talk. We all sometimes criticize ourselves. We have self-doubts. We feel failing. We always judge ourselves. We want to be better. And so what I encourage you to do is take your negative self-talk and turns it to a positive affirmation. To do that, I really think You should keep a journal with you. I have a journal in my car, and every time I drive, if I remember something, I pull over and I write something that's important, because a lot of us have thoughts as you are by yourself doing things, or when I work, I have my journal in here that I always write different things as I go, things that I remember, things that I want to do later. Keep a journal. And I want to give you a couple of examples. Let's say you have a negative self-talk saying, I always mess up things. I am such a failure. Let's say that's your negative self-talk. I always mess up things. I am such a failure. Write it down and turn it into a positive affirmation. Your positive affirmation would be, I learn from my mistake and I grow stronger with every challenge I face. Repeat it and say it to yourself several times. If, let's say, you are thinking, I am not good enough, that's a negative self-talk. Change it to, I am constantly improving. I am enough just as I am. Let's say there's a subject that you struggle, math, chemistry, physics, and you say, I am not smart enough to excel in this subject. Change it to a positive affirmation. I am capable, I am a capable learner, and I have the ability to understand and excel in any subject through dedication and effort. If you're struggling with positive affirmation, write in the comments below, and I will be happy to give you a positive affirmation for every negative thought that you have, or self-talk that you have towards yourself. Next strategy is physical wellness. Physical wellness is really as important as everything else we've spoke about. It is important to regularly exercise. Exercise doesn't have to be going to the gym and lifting things. Exercise could just be a walk around the block. That releases endorphins. Endorphins are natural mood boosters. These are hormones that we produce, and they reduce tension, anxiety, and overall bad feeling. So definitely do some regular exercise. This past Sunday, I was in an open house for my daughter's potential high school. And one of the things that I actually admired when a teacher said is, put your kids into sport. So after school, they get to do some sport and not do homework right away. Give them some break in between. And that makes so much sense, because you're giving yourself some time to recoup from that studying, constant studying. So give yourself those breaks. That's important. The significance of balanced diet. Diet is so important. We sometimes don't even understand that. Some foods are not healthy for you. It makes you feel heavy, makes you feel sleepy, makes you feel lazy, even though you're not. Heavy food, heavy meal can make you feel very sleepy, not productive. So if you know you have a lot of work to be done, hold on this. And if you can get yourself snacks that are that are full of antioxidants, full of omega 3, 6, 9, all of these are very good for brain function. Different complexes that support your brain. There's so many vitamins that you can boost your brain from food, not supplements. Eat vegetable, get yourself some snack with fruits that are much healthier than just getting yourself a meal that is not. So balanced diet is very important and productive. Get yourself enough sleep. A lot of us don't think about sleep and think that it's not so important, but really, it is important. If you want to deal with the stressful situation, make sure you get enough sleep. We are so much more irritated if we did not have enough sleep than if we actually got a good quality sleep. Put a bedtime routine. Isolate yourself from any electronic devices when you're in a bedroom. And there's so many other techniques for a good night's sleep. So all of these techniques that I gave you, including exercise, balanced diet, and sleep, are really a crucial part in everyday life, not just when you have a test, but they're specifically important before a test. Now let's talk about the test day. When you know you have a test day, what are some things that you can do to help yourself reduce that stress on the day of the test? So first of all, get a good night's sleep. And I tell that to all of my students. If you have a test tomorrow, don't overstudy today. You know what you know already. You are not going to know more within the next few hours. All that you're going to do is you're going to exhaust yourself, you're going to lose concentration, and you're going to increase anxiety. I also tell my students that if you don't know something, and between today and tomorrow during the test, you will not get those answers, it would cause you even more stress. So stop studying, review what you know, and give yourself some grace, give yourself some time, allow yourself to relax and get prepared. Get a good night's sleep, go sleep early. Don't cram and study until late night, because then you're not getting enough sleep. What is enough sleep? An adult should get anywhere between, I want to say 7 and 9 hours. Most of us probably don't get it, but that's the adequate amount of sleep. Teenagers, of course, they need to get a little bit more sleep, and little ones have to get a lot more sleep. So it all depends on your age, and that's important to follow. Another thing that's important on the day of the test is starting the day with a healthy breakfast. Breakfast is important. A lot of us skip it. We just think it's not important. It is very crucial. Lean protein, whole grain, fruit will fuel not just your body, but also your mind. Try to avoid food that is high on carbohydrates, sugar, because what happens is initially sugar helps your brain, because the brain uses sugar as the first source of energy, but then you get the sugar crush because you don't have enough sugar. I don't know how long the test takes, but whatever amount of test you have, eventually you would feel sugar deprived. Get yourself water, hydrate yourself. If a test is a long test and you have a break in between, depending on what you take, a DET, a OAT, and so on, or an MCAT, bring yourself healthy snacks, not a chocolate bar, something a little bit healthier, an oatmeal, or, even a oatmeal bar, something that would fuel you for a long time, not for the next 5 minutes. And so another thing I know that students struggle with is time. And as we said, time management is crucial, but also being on time. If you are early for a test, you're eliminating yourself that anxiety. Imagine you have a test at 9 o'clock and you know it takes about an hour to get to wherever you're going, so you leave at 8. You're putting yourself in a position where you just have exactly an hour. And so if something happens along the way, traffic, accident just before you and they block the road, some constructions that make you take an alternative road, you're already putting yourself into a stressful situation just before the test. Give yourself extra time. Give yourself an extra half hour, just so you know that you planned ahead and you'll be there early. Better to be there early than being late. And of course, I mentioned before, positive visualization, very important. Visualize, make yourself visualize and rehearse the scenario of you successfully taking the test, successfully doing whatever you wanted to do, and remain calm during the test. During the test, if you're still feeling stressed, the 4-7-8 technique works like a charm. So if you have any questions, I am always here to clarify. Feel free to comment below on if you're looking, whatever portal you're looking, on my page, Facebook page, or my YouTube channel. Feel free to comment. Feel free to send me a private message. I will be more than happy to help. For next week, I'm going to focus on effective study habits. I will give you some effective study techniques that hopefully will help you for your study tests, whichever exams you're taking. I also want to invite you to suggestion reading. I mentioned last week that I want to start reading books and I always read books, but have some summary for specific books that individuals ask me or want to get more interested in. One of the books that a few of you actually mentioned was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I started reading it this week, and I'm anticipating sometimes by the end of next week I will be finishing with that. I encourage you to read it along with me if you would like to do that, so then when I talk about it, it's going to be a little bit easier for you to follow. But that would be my topic in 2 weeks. So next week we'll talk about effective study habits, And the following week, we'll do a book report on the 7 habits of highly effective people. And I hope I have enriched your Monday today. Until our educational journey crosses again, always remember that learning is a gateway to a bright future. Thank you for being here with me today, and I will see you again next Monday.